for parentheses, E for exponents, M, D, and AS, right? And multiplication and division are on the same level, and addition and subtraction are on the same level. So you choose which one goes first from left to right. Okay, so let's take a look at this expression and let's evaluate it. So we have 2 to the third plus 4 times 7. So do we have any parentheses? No, so we're good with that. Do we have any exponents? We do. So I like to rewrite my expression over. Okay, so 2 to the third. What does that mean? I'm going to expand it, right? That's 2 times 2 times 2, right? 2 is the base and 3 is the exponent. So I'm multiplying 2 by itself 3 times, and that gives us 8. Now I'm going to just bring everything else down. I'm not going to evaluate anything else, right? Now, I did my exponents. Now, my next step, right, is multiplication and division. Do I have any multiplication and division? I do, right? 4 times 7, right? And that is 28. So I bring down the rest, right? I don't try to do too much at once, and I don't try to skip around. I just follow the order, right? That's how you're supposed to solve it. And then we have 8 plus 28, right? And that's 36. So which one matches our answer? D, 36. For our next problem, we have 2/5. I'm going to erase some of this so there's space here. But I am going to rewrite PEMDAS. I like to always see it on my paper when I'm working, so I always remember my steps, right? And so I have 2 over 5 squared, right? Now, it's really important that you notice that the 2 over 5 is the whole base. So that whole thing is getting squared. The square is outside of the parentheses. So to evaluate this, it becomes 2 over 5, right, times 2 over 5, or 2/5 times 2/5, right? Because we are squaring everything in there. This is not the same. This means 2 squared, so it's 2 times 2 over 5, right? So that's 4/5. That is not the same as 2/5 squared. 2/5 squared, right? Let's solve it. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 times 5 is 25. That is not the same. Okay, so you have to make sure that you are using your exponent, right, and squaring or multiplying by the whole, right, base. Okay, so which one is 4 over 25? C. Okay, now let's take a look at our next problem, number 3. And we have, which expression represents the phrase below? Oh, I hope you're all able to see that. Which expression represents the phrase below? 4 less than the product of 12 and a number n. Okay, so 4 less than something. 4 less than something, I know there's going to be a -4 somewhere, right? And so it's less than the product of the product of 12 and a number n. So what does that mean? The product, right? So I know I'm multiplying something, right? And it's 12 and a number n. Now, I just wanted to show it as I'm translating it through my head, but I also know that we don't really write it like that, right? We would just write 12n, because a number next to a variable means you're multiplying. So I have, right, the product of 12 and a number, so that's 12n, and I know that I have 4 less than that. Okay, which one shows me 12n, right? 4 less than 12n, which is 12n subtract 4, right? So that is A. I know people are tempted to do B because the 4 comes first in the wording, but you have to read it. 4 less than a number, right? When something's less than, right, we subtract it from something. So we're subtracting it from something else, right? And we are subtracting it from the product of 12 and a number n. let's take a look at number 4. And I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this name right, so I'm so sorry if I am not pronouncing it right. I think it's Shen, but I'm not sure. So Shen saves $25 every week. Which expression represents the amount of money in dollars Shen save in W weeks? So it's $25 every week, right? Which expression represents the amount of money in dollars Shen will save in W weeks, okay? So if we want to know an amount of weeks, we know that every week it's 25, and we want to multiply that times the amount of weeks, right? So someone I had wrote it like this. Okay, that is true. That is what you're doing. But as mathematicians, we write it like this. Well, we don't even need the dollar sign. We write it like that, right? When we want to symbolize a variable and a number being multiplied by each other, we just put the coefficient, right? This is called a coefficient because it's a number next to a variable that's coefficient. And we just put it next to the variable, and that is B, okay? And there are clues in your wording here, right? Every week, that's gonna be either multiplication or division, and we know that it usually means multiplication, right? Every usually means multiplication, and we're multiplying by the number of weeks, okay? So these are clues. Keywords are important. When we hear something like less than, every, each, are we making groups? If we're making groups, we're dividing. If we are every and making more and more and more each time, then we are multiplying, right? These are hints to how our operations are working. Okay, so which expression is represented by the phrase, the square of y increased by the quotient of 40 and 8. So what's the square of y, right? The square of y is y squared, right? And increase, when we increase something, we add it, right? By the quotient of 40 and 8. So the quotient of 40 and 8 looks like this, right? So 40 divided by 8, right? And I know you could write it a lot of different ways, like 40 divided by 8, but you see in your answers that it's looking for something with a fraction, right? And we know that fractions mean division. So let's put it together. The square of y, right? So it's y squared increased plus 40 over 8, right? The quotient of 40 and 8. Which one shows that? Right? This one has increased, so we know that it can't be this one, right? And this one, none of the other ones even show an increase with stuff, really, right? When we're talking about with y, but it is D. And I know that just from going through the wording. Okay, number 6. Number 6 is super easy if you know, right, the vocabulary in this unit, right? So what is the coefficient in the expression 14x plus 18 minus 4? Okay, so our coefficient, right, it is the number next to the letter. It does not include the whole term. This is a term. Let me try to make that more the way it's supposed to look. This is a term, right? The coefficient is just the number next to the variable, okay? So your answer is D, 14. Okay. Number 7. What is the value of the expression below when A equals 3 and B equals 4? So in this case, we are going to substitute our variables with numbers that are given to us. So I'm just going to rewrite my expression with the values that are given. So, and I'm going to put my values in parentheses, right? Minus 3, B equals 4, plus 6. Okay, now I want to solve. And it's really important that when you solve, you go back to PEMDAS. I know you guys get a little confused sometimes, but it's really important. I would just write it. And it's all over our classrooms, right? We see that it's up. There is a poster in a lot of our classrooms. And a lot of you know it from previous years. Okay, so do we have parentheses? Yes, we do. Okay, so let's take a look at our parentheses. Now, which one would we want to work with first? Well, let's see. We have a parentheses with a multiplication and exponent, and we have another parentheses with just multiplication. And we know exponents come, right, before multiplication, right? So that's what we're going to do first. 3 squared, right? That's 3 times 3, 3 to the power of 2. And that gives us 9. I'm going to put my parentheses back because I'm not done, right? I only figured out the inside when it's squared. Now we're going to work with our parentheses and evaluate them. Now, it doesn't matter if you do, for me, if you do both at the same time or you do one and then bring it down. I like to do one and bring it down. I like to do step by step by step. So I'm going to do 2 times 9 equals 18 minus 3 times 4 plus 6, right? And bring that down. 12, right? 3 times 4 is 12 plus 6. Now, you could have, because we're just doing the parentheses, gone straight to doing both parentheses because we're not really changing anything around yet, right? So we have 18 minus 12, right? And that's 6 plus 6 equals 12. Okay, so which one represents that? C, right? And we went from left to right. We did 18 minus 12, right? Even though addition and subtraction are on the same level, we just go from left to right. Okay. And if you could do that one, number 8 is pretty easy. And I'm going to write PEMDAS again over here. It's your paper on your exam. You can write it down. You could write formulas down, but we're not really working with formulas, but you are allowed to write that down. You are allowed to write down the word variable or coefficient just so you remember what it is. You're allowed to do that. It's your paper. What is the value of the expression below when z equals 2? So I am going to substitute or replace z with 2, right? And bring the PEMDAS back, right? I'm going to evaluate. So I have parentheses, right? I have no exponent, right? But with my parentheses, I'm going to do 6 times 2, and that's 12, right? And just bring down the rest. So 12 minus 3, right, is 9. That is B, 9.